Okay, we're holding over here back in the world of Bechira, of free will, and I've been breaking my teeth on the Hebrew version. This book was written in English originally, and then it was translated into Hebrew, and it was translated into a very elite, high, fluent level of Hebrew that's high, falutant, whatever, a very high level of Hebrew that's really way above my pay grade of the Hebrew language. And it's been bothering me for a long time. Why did Rabbi Tatz, who wrote the English version, why did he write the Hebrew so difficult to understand? So lo and behold, this past Shabbos, sitting at my Shabbos table, was the daughter of Rabbi Tatz, the author of this book. But the story is even bigger. It turns out that she's married to a relative of my wife that we didn't even realize that we were relatives. A long story. Anyway, it'll make it into a drasha one day. Anyway, but the bottom line is that I asked her, I said, please, you'll forgive me. Why did your father translate the book from English to Hebrew in such difficult Hebrew? You basically have to be a naturally born Hebrew speaker and an Israeli to understand the Hebrew. She said, oh, my father didn't translate the book. I said, what? She said, no, he gave it over to an Israeli, and they translated it for him, and he did it because he wanted to reach the Israeli-speaking, the Hebrew-speaking audience that's not so religious, that would find benefit in reading a book all about free will, that would open up their eyes to be able to see what it's all about. So I said, if that's the case, I'm no longer obligated to break my teeth on the Hebrew because it's not Rabbi Tatz anyway. So now I can go back into the English over here and we can make it easy for all of us. So we mentioned last time in the class that what is it that determines the point of one's Bechira, of one's free will? What are the factors in a person's life that is determining the free will? And we explained the following idea. There are external factors in a person's life, and there are, now I'm going to see it's probably easier for me to do just the Hebrew, but anyway, there are external factors in the person's life, and that are responsible for setting up his circumstances in a certain way. And the second thing is the history of the choices that the person has already made, which will determine the upcoming tests and challenges in that person's life. So really what he's going to begin to describe right now is what do these two things mean and how does it affect our Bechira. But on a very surface level, my life was set up more or less without me doing anything. Who my parents are going to be, where I'm going to be born, the kind of school that I'm going to go to as a younger child, the experiences that are going to be presented to me, that has nothing to do with my choices. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrating the world around me to set up my life in a very particular and a certain way. And then choices that I am obligated to make, those will determine the next set of challenges or the next set of choices that are going to come my way. Right?
They say that we all travel through life with a different baggage.
Yes.
And what is our baggage? Our experiences, our education, that's what makes you who you are.
Correct. So he explains it like this. He says, first of all, there are factors in a person's life that are beyond your free will, are beyond your choice. And he says that there's many elements that are beyond the will of a person that actually shape and form who they are. For example, he says, you have innate abilities, you have certain abilities, talents, handicaps, which result of both nature and nurture, and they're responsible for shaping the psyche and its range of possible responses. Which means, did you decide to be an anxious person? Did you decide to be a lazy person? Did you decide to have a talent where your mind works in a certain way and it's very savvy in the world of business? Did you decide all these things? Did you decide Hashem gave you a beautiful voice and you could sing beautifully? Did you decide to have that beautiful voice? Hashem gave you that beautiful voice. And so on and so forth. There's many, many details in a person's life, whether nature is in such a way, or you were nurtured in that way. And I always think about my son Moshe took up guitar lessons about maybe 3 years ago already. So 3 years ago, before he started playing, he said, I would like to learn how to play guitar. Did you know how to play guitar? No. Did you know anything about chords? No. Did you know anything about music? He likes music. But did you know keys and chords and nothing? As he got into it, so the nurture of that, of immersing himself into the world of guitar playing, so today he's a fantastic guitar player and a singer and the whole thing. So the talent was there, inbred inside of him, but it's a question of whether or not it's going to be nurtured and brought out. So you could take another person who's not musical. There are such people that are not musical. They could pick up an instrument. They will not know what they are doing. No matter how much you will try to train them and the like, they will not know. I have certain kids that they are talented in music. They sit down at the piano and their ear starts working and they can play. And there's kids that they have an aversion. They don't care. So says Rav Tatz that there are things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets up in a person's life that's outside your ability to choose. That's the way that it is. And then he says, a person has intelligence, they have natural personality traits, there are complex elements in each individual with the mind and body combination, which are the products of hereditary and environmental forces and their interplay. So there's a certain DNA that everybody has, that we inherit from our parents, and they inherited from their parents, and so on and so forth. It's in the genes. What did you do for that? You did nothing for that. Some people, they age gracefully. Some people, they age not so gracefully. It's hereditary the way that it's going to work. Some people are naturally athletic and fit. Some people are not. When you have when you have a large family, you can see the kids that this one is a natural athlete. This guy has 2 left feet. No matter what he does, no matter what sport he tries to play, it just doesn't go. So everybody has these different things. Now these variables set each person's starting point in a way that is not amenable to choice. You didn't choose what are your strengths going to be. You didn't choose what your talents are going to be. You didn't choose the natural character traits that you have inside of you. That was predispositioned for you, pre-decided for you from Hashem, without your intervention at all. And they're set in place a long time before you can make any choices. I remember when my first child was born, somebody who was already older than me, already had kids that were growing up, he said, watch your child very carefully when they're an infant, because whoever they are as an infant is who they're going to be as they grow older. The nature of who they are in the infancy stage, as you watch them develop, you'll see that is their character as they get older as well. So you can see the cranky kid, you can see the angry kid, you can see the happy-go-lucky kid, you can see the one who's easygoing, you can see the one that's hot-headed. You can see all that when they're already in that stage. That means that it was already determined who they're going to be. But that itself, as we're going to see, is not an excuse to do with your life whatever you want to do. Meaning just because I am the hot-headed child, and my parents will attest to it from the time that I was a colicky little kid in the crib, I was always upset and I always had a look of anger on my face. So that doesn't mean I have a past to be angry for the rest of my life. And if I was the easygoing kid, it's not a given that I'm going to be easygoing for the rest of my life just because that's the way that I was when I was born. There are things that could happen in my life that could end up undoing the easygoingness that is in there unless I will respond properly to the events. And he says like this, he says, just how attractive a person may find a particular sensual temptation may be the result of a constellation of inner mechanisms and outer pressures, none of which were chosen at all. There could be so much inside the person that is creating his feelings or his emotions or his draw to certain things. There's the biological, the physiological, the psychological things that are going on, the physical yearnings that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put inside of the person. Nothing to do with anything that you did before, nothing at all. It's just the way that God has made you. And therefore, it's entirely possible that a tendency to an addiction or to any number of physiological or indeed psychological or physiological traits are innate, whether or not specific genes or causative biological mechanisms have yet to be identified. Which means that you could be predispositioned for certain things. It could be part of your physiological makeup, and you did nothing to bring that upon yourself. Now, in the world at large, they would love you to believe, well, if that's the way that you were created, and that's who you are, so then there is no choice. You're always going to go down that path, and don't even bother trying to change anything which is on the inside. And he says like this, that these set points, I think it sounds better in Hebrew, by the way. I think I'm going to have to go back, break my teeth over the Hebrew. But these set points are the givens, meaning that's what's given to you, and they're not chosen. You did nothing to choose that. So then where's free will? So he says that the application of free will begins after everything is in place. After HaKadosh Baruch Hu has designed you, after he made you who you are, on the internal essence of who you are, and all the external forces that he's exposed you to and raised you in all of your life, after all of that, when are you going to choose, after the fact, how you choose to respond within the set of psychological and physiological elements that form the particular frame of reference is not determined.
I don't know anybody who came from Cuba who votes Democrat.
Okay.
If you have gone through those experiences, you will never vote Democrat.
Okay.
But the people here, because they don't know any better, they vote either way.
Okay, so what you're saying is that based on the experiences that people in Cuba had, so therefore they would never vote for a democratic government.
Correct.
Fine. So that's shaped your choices. Somebody who had a different experience in life,
they don't know any better.
Somebody had a different experience in life, so therefore they would gravitate towards a more democratic outlook on the world. So those are the experiences in life. Now, does somebody from Cuba only have to vote Republican? I mean, you could have a person. No, when they come here.
Oh, I don't know.
So I'm saying they could, based on their exposure, based on their thoughts, based on what they read, based on how their emotions, they could end up changing and saying, even though when I came to this country and I was running from Fidel Castro, there's no way in the world I'll ever vote Democrat. But you know what? America's not such a bad place, and all the different things, fine. And then on the other hand, you could have someone who's a Democrat, and over the years they could tweak their vision of the world, and they could become more conservative. So that's what he's saying. Again, that's like a low-level example of where free will comes into play. We're going to see that free will is really much more the internal struggle that a person has to make the right decisions. But, says Rav Tatz over here, that your free will is going to operate after everything's in place, and now you're deciding what are you going to do with that. There may be very few degrees of freedom in how that framework is set up, but one's functioning within that framework represents the faculty of free will. So Hashem, he sets up the whole situation. What are you going to do with it? That's going to be up to you. And as we're going to learn, I can't always excuse my behavior because, well, that's the way that I am. That's how I was raised. That's how I was brought up. That's how my inner world and my inner clock, that's how it operates. But if it's the wrong thing, so then why do you think that's an excuse? By nature, I'm a violent person. Whatever, that's how I am. I'm a violent person. So the fact that I knocked the old lady over and I stole her purse and I run away from the police, I mean, what do you want from me? That's the kind of person that I am. So free will is going to beckon the call to a person. Yeah, but if there's right and there's wrong, and there's just and unjust, and there's moral and there's immoral, just because you were born in such a way that the negative speaks to you, it's not a pass to remain that way all of your life. You're going to have to do something that's going to allow you to look and see what's right, even if it means I have to work very hard to get to that place. I'm going to be obligated to do such a thing. And that's what we'll see, God willing, as we continue to move along.
Have a bigger struggle than others, depending on what their character is.
That's also true. Based on their character, based on their life experiences, based on their environment, that's all true.
I mean, if
But
a person was brought up with a bunch of bigot parents, he'll be a bigot person until he finally sees some sort of light, and then he'll have a bigger struggle to try to get out of that.
right, but at the same time, there's always the excuse of the kid that grew up in the inner city, who was around violence from the time that he was a child, and so on and so forth. What do you expect from him? Yeah, but what about all of those that also grew up in the same environment, and they said, this is not what I want for myself, and they go on to become 4.0 GPAs at Harvard, becoming lawyers and becoming successful. Same circumstances, same type of family, same environment. That means that one person decided to use their free will and raise themselves up from the situation, and another one decided, I have a pass, and I'm just not going to think about making any decisions. I'm just going to go along with that flow that I'm in. So we'll have to see that. Shkayach, thank you.
Just one question. It has nothing to do with the